the voices of like pretty technical people get lost, right? Like, because we are introverts in a lot of ways. We are the people who have been behind the screen coding an entire day, entire night, and our stories never get heard. So I mean, this is a great platform, right? Like, because it takes a lot of like struggles for anybody without having any connections and backgrounds to come to a center stage and build something.
Sure. So Hina, thank you so much for joining me. We're here at HumanX. We're at the inaugural version of the show. What do you think? How's your show going so far?
Thank you so much, Dennis. Thank you for the invite, and this is great. The show has been amazing. We had a masterclass, and there was like a huge crowd. We didn't expect that all the seats would be filled, but apparently like people want to know newer technologies here. They are very, very curious about everything, and we got some amazing audience and exposure for our product Blackbird.
Fantastic. Yeah, so you're here behind your new startup, Blackbird. We spoke briefly about it yesterday. I think you told me you're about 6 months old, 8 months old?
So we are around 4.5 months.
Oh, even younger.
Yeah. So our startup is called Decompute, and the product that we have come to launch is called Blackbird. So Decompute is the the startup behind Blackbird, and Blackbird is basically like an agentic platform that can let any consumers or pro consumers without any technical background create any agent for themselves for specific tasks.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, so I think you're also emphasizing the locality of it all. For somebody who's looking not just for an on-premise solution, but an on-local hardware solution, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So you guys think you've cracked that problem then?
I wouldn't say that we have reached the singularity there. It's still to be achieved, but we have done something which is very novel. We now enable people to fine-tune their models locally on the laptop. Fine-tuning is basically part of the training process. It's like a post-training. So basically you take these models are nothing like without pre-training, right? And they're just like some transformer neural based networks, and then they have like some weights that need to be set for a certain data, certain task, and the pre-training kind of like does it for most of the data. Like you can't assume like a basic model would know English as well. So it's trained on or pre-trained for certain language, basic specific tasks. But when you need more specific learnings, or you wanted to learn about very specific vertical, like which can be very difficult, right? Like finance, for example, or legal, for example. That is where post-training or fine-tuning comes. So how most of the companies function right now, they take these like open source models like Dixit, Llama, Quen, and what they do is basically like they fine tune that on their data.
Sure.
And right now data is the mode, right? Like whoever has the best data, right, for the customers, they are the ones who are going to win this market. But the problem is like the older generation companies or enterprises, they might not have like resources, or like it could be a bigger problem for them to solve the infrastructure aspect of AI. So we come in and we say that we make that solution much easier for you, and we enable like basically enterprise-based solutions which can like enable people to fine-tune models locally on-prem or on their devices as well.
That's wonderful. I think there's going to be an increasing demand for that type of hyper localized, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Type of model training and usage. Wonderful. So that's your latest startup, but you have quite a bit of history of working in tech. Would you like to kind of give us the elevator pitch? I know you've participated even at the investor level. Yeah. So want to kind of just walk us through that?
Sure. So before Decompute, I was a partner at Microsoft's venture fund, and I led their AI infrastructure and AI thesis basically.
Wow.
Also their investments. It was like a fun job, but at the same time it had like I had my own movements, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But before Microsoft, I used to head AI investments at Samsung's venture capital arm, and it's called Samsung Next, and there also I used to lead AI investments and thesis. Before that, I was at Apple for around 8 years, and at Apple I used to lead several key AI based projects, a lot of infra projects as well. So I think it's a mix. My background is a mix of technical, very technical, to very businessy.
Right.
During my time, like in venture capital, I kind of invested around 15 to 20 companies. These companies, like some of them had really good exits. Thankfully, like Mosaic ML had a really good exits. A lot of them turned out to be unicorns, like Stability AI. This another one called 12 Labs that's doing very well. So many like of these fun times with different founders, learning
Sure.
from their journey. The reason I moved to VC was because I wanted to learn about entrepreneurship, and I didn't have any connections. I was like, okay, how can I, go and build a startup if I wanted to? And it seemed like a very hard problem, but it had so much exposure in last 3 years. I really enjoyed myself. And then there was a time when I felt like I was going to miss a train. And it felt like, okay, this was my moment to go in and start building again. So I just took that chance, and here we are.
A good time for it. Yeah. So this is the first year for HumanX. Your startup is in early stages, but sounds like it has a good progress. But it's overall, it's not your first rodeo in AI and tech.
Yes.
Great. So from the experience that you've had, if you could just give one tip, somebody catches you in an elevator and says, Hina, give me one tip for my startup for getting off the ground, for growing. What is that one tip that you would give to people?
So one tip would be choose your co-founders very carefully, and basically your core team can make or break this entire challenge for you. If you have amazing co-founders like I do, right, so your life becomes a lot easier. You can rely on them, because startup journeys have lots of ups and downs, and there will be days when you'll be fighting against the entire world together. So having that kind of trust mechanism or some way of communication with each other is very important. Thankfully, we found right co-founders between the three of us. But at the same time, if you get somebody you haven't worked with earlier, or you're not sure about them, you're going to regret much later, right? So it's better to just figure it out right away.
It sounds like you're giving advice that was learned, or you've seen some very hard lessons there.
I would say yes. I have seen a lot of startups having some issues early on, and CEO had to leave, right? So it's important to make the right choices when you're preparing for the groundbreaking journey, because it will break your spirits. There will be days when you'll be completely shattered, that there are so many no's. You take no's from investors, you take no's from your customers. You would want to hire people who would want to work for you, right? So there are a lot of no's involved, and in that time, if you have the support system, if you have these resourceful co-founders who are going to go out of their way, take on any problem that they have, right, for you and for the company, they're passionate about it, there's nobody who can stop you. So
Fantastic. I love that advice. So I'm going to love hearing your perspective on the next couple of questions, because you've been working in AI for so long. So one of the things I always ask my my interviewers, or my guests I should say, is I want to know what makes you excited about AI and what makes you fearful about AI.
So excited, yes, I'm very excited about opening up the AI to general masses, right? Enabling anybody to use their data for their leverage and increasing and boosting their productivity in their day-to-day role, right? That's what my goal is at Decompute, right? I want to empower people. I want people to feel that they're augmented and they have more power somehow, and it shouldn't be something that should replace them. It should be something that they feel very powerful with, right? So that is the journey that I want for people to have as we are moving in the next step of AI. What makes me fearful is currently there are a lot of companies who are trying to deliver this elevator pitch that, hey, we'll replace your employees, right? And that is something that makes me very worried about the future that we might have. Right, because that would be very dystopian era, if everybody you interact with is apparently AI, right? And there's no human touch to it. So how can we do those things where humans have more time, doing fun things and interacting with people and doing the things that they love, while the mundane tasks should be taken care of by AI.
Okay. Yeah. Do you think that maybe in that same hopes, people are maybe putting too much hope on that as far as the human replacement goes? Because it can backfire too, right?
It can backfire for sure, and especially like, would you trust, how would you make these AI systems that are trustworthy enough to handle these different types of data, right? Like, and now if you're saying that, okay, there's a person who's making a customer call and they're talking about their credit card, right? There could be like a very sensitive issue at their end. How would you ensure like the AI is able to keep up, right? Like, how would you ensure that your data would not land in, cloud out there? Because right now, if you look at like how LLMs are built, LLMs tend to have memorization abilities. So they memorize basically everything. You could actually like, hack into the systems and these LLMs to get the data out if you wanted. So having some sort of security fail-safe mechanism there is what is important, right? So that's where we come in and we say that, okay, like we can enable these enterprises to like, switch to cloud mode, but at the same time, like keep those private data, like, types or like different documents or like, voice messaging or images, like everything local on your device, right? And that can like, help you toggle between the two modes, like, right? Like it could be on device for a lot of private tasks, but if it's a very like resource intensive task, right? It's compute intensive, then we automatically scale to the cloud-based APIs, right? Where we can understand, okay, like sensitivity or privacy is not a concern there.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So obviously you had a long career, so a lot has gone into getting you here. If you think about your academic side, were there any academic influences that really kind of moved you forward? Maybe a particular professor or a white paper you read, or just some kind of just like a really like revelation moment for you in any part of your career.
So there have been like a lot of moments, right? Like, so I had a mentor at Apple, right? Like, and there was this very interesting project that I was trying to do, and I also kind of like, would write some piece of code and would be very scared to like, just check it in, because I would be like, hey, I'll break everything in the code, or like everything, the build will be broken next day. Tim Cook is going to like, call my manager and I'll be fired next day. I don't know, like, and I was very new. And there's this gentleman, like one of very dear friends of mine and my mentor, and he just said that, hey, if things are breaking, you can always do a reverse commit, right? So never be scared to try out things, because if you like, have this fear hold you back, we'll not get the best out of you. We want you to take risk every day at work, right? And if you're not living like that, that's not the right job for you. Sure. And that changed me like completely, and I was like, okay, okay, fine, like I could, and then I became a different person, right? Like I've broken the build like once, right. But yeah, I wasn't fired or anything. Like it was just like, yeah, just come to work at like, at 4 a.m. and fix this. I was like, yeah, I'll come and do that. But hey, like, I also did a lot of great projects, and I did great things like, at work at Apple, and enjoyed it because I was taking risks constantly, enjoying and learning and growing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's almost one of those things where if you're not breaking the code base every once in a while, then you're probably not you're not putting enough risk out there, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, great. So that conversation really just kind of changed your perspective there.
Yeah, and I think like it opened me more towards risk taking, and my ability of taking risks became more and more as I grew up. And I think like I became like, and the same gentleman, right? Like, and he told me, hey, like you used to say, like I used to say sorry a lot, like for every little thing, and I would constantly like, question myself, and I think I needed that extra push there. And he was like, no, like you should not say sorry for every small thing, because you should say sorry when you really mean it. And I was like, I mean it. It's such a small thing, you shouldn't feel sorry then. So I think like it made me into a person who became very secure as an individual in life, and I think that was a great influence.
Wonderful, that's a great story. Okay, so let's take away all the tech stuff. You can't work in tech, you can't work in AI. What would you be doing with your life? What would you be working?
I don't know, I think. So my journey has been like a bit of ups and downs, I would say. So I grew up like in somewhat of like a very humble family. My dad was out of work, and my grandma, like, you know, she actually suffered a stroke, and there was like a moment when I was like, you know, we knew that she's not going to make it. And I remember, like, you know, I was just 8 at that time, and my dad was out of job, and we didn't have enough money to, like, you know, take her to a better hospital. And at that moment, like, I knew that I was gonna lose her, but I also didn't know about these financial burdens that my dad was going through. And I remember, like, after losing her, like, I just looked at the skies, and I asked a question, like, this is such a natural thing. Like, I don't know how an 8-year-old will just stay and stare at the cloud and would ask themselves that, what do I want to be? And that was such a deep question, and the answer came, no, I want to have like my own company, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to be in tech. And ever since I was 8, I knew what I wanted to do, and I have never deviated from my goal ever since. Everything that I've done in life, it's always been about like achieving that goal.
Wow.
It's just such a weird thing, right? Like, but it's just happened.
I think it's an earlier age than most people. I mean, I don't know if it's weird, but it's definitely early.
Yeah, it's pretty early, I would say. And you know, it's such a funny thing that, like, you know, so my dad, like, he opened a PCO, basically. It's a public call office, so everybody used to come to that, like, particular small, like, booth kind of place.
Okay.
And I used to, like, you know, be an accountant and helper there, right? Like, so I used to host everybody's calls, make calls for them, hand phone off to them. And I was 8, like, you know, when I used to do that. And little did that girl know that she would actually work for the biggest telecom company in the future. Like, and I made it to Apple. I was like, oh, that's why I was into phones. That's why phones were like part of my life growing up.
So another question I like to ask, I ask this of all my guests. I give you a magic microphone. You have 5 minutes. You get to talk to everyone in the world. Everyone in the world has to listen to you. 5 minutes is not a long time. So, you know, you can really only talk about one concept. And by the way, you only have 3 days to prepare. Because I had a guest, you know who you are, who actually said, well, I would need multiple years to prepare. So you only have 3 days to prepare. The entire world has to listen to you. What do you say?
So at this point, like, I think I'm a very small individual. I can't make decisions for the world at this point, but, you know, I'm trying to make a difference in people's life through my work. I think, like, my thinking or my ideology has been that AI shouldn't be the property of very few incumbents. It should be more open, it should be decentralized. Anybody who has, like, training, like, you know, who has, like, basic training of using, like, any electronic device, eventually should be able to, like, you know, be hold or, like, you know, or a master of their destiny in AI, right? Like, they should not be replaced. Rather, they should, like, become so powerful with their skills and, like, you know, with their data that they create. You know, there has to be more value to that, right? The data and the tasks they do. So I want the company to be able to, or Decompute to be able to help those people in some way. So that's why, like, I built this company, and my POV was that, okay, like, I want to enable anybody in this world to train their own models and serve, like, you know, a particular task and see, like, how well can they do in their career, right? Like, and nobody else can replace them then. Because, hey, it's a mix of AI and human then. It's not just AI doing a task. Now you can work on your human side more and let AI do your, you know, your thing for you.
So again, guys, that company was Blackbird. Where can they find you again?
Decompute.
Oh, excuse me. Well, where can they find you?
So you can find us on LinkedIn. So we are Decompute, and we are based in Cupertino. You can also email us to hi@decompute.run.
So let me get that straight then. So the company is Decompute, and their product is Blackbird.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I apologize. I mixed up the two. So again, guys, Hina here. We're at the HumanX conference. She's here with her company Decompute. Please check them out if you're interested in a highly localized LLM. But Hina, thank you so much for joining us. Really happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.